Nothing Personal starts in 30 seconds. It's just business. This is Nothing Personal.
Here you go.
Embarrassing. That's the Nothing Personal word of the day. It's Friday, April 4th, 2025. Welcome to Nothing Personal, episode 1250. We've done a bunch of mailbags and sit downs, but this is the 1250th episode with a word of the day. Thank you to everyone who's been here since episode 1 or episode 1249. We got you covered today. Embarrassing. It's not embarrassing. This was a fight that we had this morning. We, meaning me and myself. Me, myself, and I and Jim Carrey had an argument that, is it embarrassing when you're 0-7? Is it embarrassing when you start off the way the Braves have started off, where you simply can't hit, your bullpen stinks, and you find yourself with a donut heading into a new series, heading into the second weekend of the year? Austin Riley, one of the players they've signed to a long-term deal, one of the players among all of them. I can't remember the box score from their last loss against the Dodgers, the Ohtani walk-off, when they were up 5-0 and lost 6-5 with all the people waiting online for bobbleheads. I just know that I don't think anybody's hitting above 200. The Braves are last in average. They're last in OPS. They're last in hits. They can't hit with anyone in runner scoring position. They've gotten like 6 hits out of 49. They don't slug. They don't get on base. Obviously, no OPS, last in that. They absolutely have stunk. So what happens when you're losing games like this to start a season and you're supposed to be good? You know, if the Rockies or the White Sox or the Marlins had started off 0-7, there's not much talking about. Oh, this is what we expected. This is what the Sims said. The media isn't all over you. You're not the lead story of Nothing Personal. It's a Tuesday. But when you're a good team, when you're a team that was chosen by many to win the division, when you're a team that's put together by a brilliant executive, Alex Anthopoulos, a team that has done nothing but win for the last, God, for me and an NL East guy, it feels like the Braves have done nothing but win since the early 90s and certainly for the last 25 years. More media, more attention, more questions. So what the manager has to do is you have to take a pin to the atmosphere in the clubhouse and you have to keep pricking. You try to release the air, release the heavy, dense, thick layer of ozone that is so pervasive in a clubhouse where you can just sense that tightness is coming. When you're in a game and you're down 8-0 or down 7-0, that would be a smarter score to start with because that would be Braves 0-7. If you're down 7-0 in a game, what you say to your players on the bench is, hey, just get the line moving. Get on base. All right, now you get on base. Don't get down on the knob, dig in, and look for a 7-run home run. They don't exist. Let's get runners on. Side note, Coca, do you know when we're down 2 runs going into the 9th that we don't want a leadoff home run? Strange, because you'd think a leadoff home run would be amazing because then you're down 1 with no outs and a run in. But we always like someone to get on base when you're down 2 runs because it just feels like you're starting a rally. When you hit a home run, that can be a one-off and you're down 2, then you're down 1. You still need to have a rally. When someone gets on base, you got yourself the start of a potential rally. So when you're down 7-0 in a game, get on base. It's the same thing when you're 0-7. And really, when you're in the middle of a losing streak and you've lost 7 in a row, You don't try to win 7 in a row the next game. And that sounds so easy in practice and in theory, but the truth is it's not. And Austin Riley, one of the players who's just played terribly, he said, from a personal standpoint, it's honestly embarrassing what I've displayed offensively. He's 3 for 27 right now. I've got a lot of work to do. It's embarrassing. I really love that sort of leadership where you're not calling out the entire team because the entire team is struggling. I like when a player takes it on himself to say, I want to be better. I'm going to work myself out of this. But the real job for an 0-7 team that's supposed to be good rests with the manager. And Brian Snicker came out with a quote that I really wanted to examine for you. He said, I don't wish this on anybody in a competitive arena. What we're going through is tough, very tough. Everybody knows it. Those guys in there are more than aware of it. They feel it. It's hard. And there's nothing you can do but to fight your way out of it. So there's two ways that we ask our manager to talk in these situations. One way is that you just say, hey, we're obviously a good team. I have all the faith, trust, and confidence in this group of players. We've got this. Everybody stay calm. The other way is you go with the disappointment route. It is very hard for me to believe that we have not been prepared for these games. We look like we're out to lunch. We're not having competitive at bats from 1 through 9 in the lineup. Our bullpen is not ready to go. They're not performing. I'm going to try to do a better job, but these guys have to look in the mirror. That's the second way you can do it. The third way you can do it, which is a way that I don't suggest on anybody, is you ignore it. It's called the ostrich's head in the sand routine. You don't talk about it with the media. You don't answer questions about it. You don't make your players or anybody available but what you're mandated to do, which is to have your manager available. And you tell your manager, just ignore it. We've got a game to play today against the Marlins, and we're going to play. We're looking forward to the game. We look forward to each game. So the three different ways. And what Snicker chose is he wanted to be honest outwardly about what's going on in the clubhouse. Now, it's true that the Braves players have very likely looked at the stats and said that nobody who started the season 0-7 has made the playoffs. Two of the teams who started 0-7, and there have been 28 of them, they had winning seasons. The other 26 did not. So what are the odds that the Braves have a winning season? You would argue it's 1-14. What are the odds that the Braves make the playoffs? You could argue statistically it's 0. But in baseball, we really don't look at it that way. We look at an 0-7 start. It's not like in the NFL going 0-7, because remember, every game in the NFL roughly is 10 games. So if you're 0-7 during a football season, that's like being 0-70. And I would agree that if you're 0-70 in baseball, the odds of you having a winning season are 0. The odds of you making the playoffs are 0. But 0-7, 7 out of 162, you're not even at 5% of the season. Just keep that in mind. We are still at the early part of early. We're not even mid-early this season. Now, it's true the Braves have a lot of good things coming. They've got Acuna coming back next month. They've got Strider coming back. They've got Profar coming back. I cannot believe I'm saying those three people in the same sentence. Let me do that better, Coca. 4-8-69. The Braves have Acuna coming back from his second torn ACL, and he should be back next month. By definition, that's going to help. They've got Spencer Strider, arguably their best pitcher, coming back sometime in May. That's going to help. They're going to have to play without Jurickson Profar, who was suspended for 80 games for steroids. Not ideal. He'll be back at the start of July. The question is, where will the Braves be? I've got a prediction for you. When Jurickson Profar comes back in July, the Braves are going to be above 500. The Braves are too good not to recover from this start. So I would encourage you not to panic. And if you are concerned about a winning team or making the playoffs. Here's one way to go through life that I like. I'm a glass half full guy. Now, it's true when the glass is halfway finished, I try to refill the glass. But when I look at a glass, I'm like, oh, I got a ways to go. You're only 4 games back of the wild card, and you have 155 games to play. Doesn't that make you feel so much better about where you are? I'm going to give you a wait to see on the Braves here, Coca. An official wait to see, if you don't mind. And we can keep this until the end of the season. Put it at davidsamsonpodcast.com. The Atlanta Braves will finish with a winning record in 2025. Wait to see. New customers visit Huel.com/Samson today and use code Samson to get 15% off your first order plus a free gift. What is Huel, you may be asking? It's a ready-to-go drink packed with healthy vitamins and minerals, 35 grams of protein. Whenever I'm on the run, which is often, and need something quick and easy to fuel up, I go with Huel. Either strawberry banana flavored for the morning, that's sort of like a fresh smoothie. I'm also a big fan of vanilla later in the day. They've got iced coffee or chocolate to choose from as well. Huel Black Edition ready to drink is also good for your gut. It's a source of calcium, which helps contribute to the normal function of digestive enzymes. So please put down the fast food and replace it with a fast drink. One you know needs no prep, no hassle. Just grab and crack it. Huel will save you time and money. Black Edition ready to drink is a meal in a bottle. One bottle contains 35 grams of protein, 27 vitamins and minerals, and is low in sugar. Huel is a perfectly balanced meal designed by nutrition experts and takes the guesswork out of healthy eating. New customers visit Huel.com/Samson today and use code Samson to get 15% off your first order plus a free gift. I wonder what Alex Ovechkin is going to get as a gift when he breaks the unbreakable record. Do you get him like a gold-plated hockey stick? You take the puck that'll be used for the goal that will break Wayne Gretzky's record? Do you frame it? Do you show it to people? Do you have it go on tour? The Hall of Fame is going to ask for it. While many of you may have been sleeping, you are witnessing history. Not only are the Washington Capitals the best team in the Eastern Conference, but Alex Ovechkin, at the tender age of Coca, Sarah, 39, some age that is just outrageous. He's got a goal for every year he's been alive this year. He has scored 39 goals this season. It really is amazing. That's tied for the second most, by the way, for goal scorers for anyone at that age behind Gordie Howe. If you don't know Gordie Howe, check him out. The guy was 44 years old and he was scoring goals, which is obviously insane. Alex Ovechkin's going to get 40 goals this year. It'll be the 14th time he's done it, which is a record to be that good for that many years. Don't forget he broke his leg this year, by the way. But the reason I'm focused on Ovechkin is I'm not sure why this isn't the lead story everywhere. Now, I grant you that hockey is the fourth of the four major sports and in danger of becoming the fifth of the four major sports if by chance anyone would ever subscribe to Apple and the MLS package. But the WNBA becomes bigger than MLS and hockey. But the fact is that when Wayne Gretzky had the record for goals scored, you looked at how many goals he scored and you said, it seems pretty unlikely that anyone will get to 895. Because when Gretzky has had 894 for all those years, and when he retired, you did the math and you're like, well, it's really hard to score 40 goals in a year. And then you have to have someone who gets in the league and does it for 20 years, which is insane. Because, wait a minute, that won't even be enough. You're going to have to do it for 22 years, and then you're still going to be short by 14? Think about the math. It's like saying that someone's going to get the number of hits that Pete Rose had or Ichiro has had. It's simply impossible until Alex Ovechkin came around. Now, we could spend time talking about Ovechkin's politics if you want, but we don't need to. We could spend time talking about the fact that there have been fights going on over who's going to broadcast the Capitals games. That's something that hasn't really gone on before. But before we get to those arguments, and we may only get to one versus two, I would just like to take a minute and say to Alex that I appreciate what you're doing because sustained greatness, and we're seeing it in basketball with LeBron. You could argue we're seeing it with Steph Curry. We're seeing it with Alex Ovechkin. The ability to be good without steroids. So I don't want to count the older players in baseball who stayed good later in their careers because of steroids. But the ability to be not just a bench player, not just a third line guy in hockey. We're talking about the best player, arguably. Alex Ovechkin is still, and we could talk about Connor McDavid. We could talk about all of the players who in hockey would be considered above Ovechkin right now, to both to start a franchise and maybe this year. But I would say that what he's done on a team that is just behind Winnipeg for being the best in all of hockey is incredibly noteworthy. So noteworthy that all of these broadcast networks all of a sudden are tripping over each other to show this game when he breaks the record, except like a home run record. It's not a consecutive games played record where you know what game it'll be and you can put all your resources toward that game. You just don't know when Ovechkin's going to break the record. While it does seem like he scores one every game, he's got 3 to go to break it, 2 to tie, and the next 3 games are Friday, tonight, Sunday, and Thursday. So ESPN has the Friday game. It's going to be on NHL Network, Hulu, and Disney. He's not going to get a hat trick today. So they're not despondent. In fact, they're actually rooting for him not to score at all. Sunday is a Turner game. So Turner, TNT, True Max, True TV, and Max, they've got his game on Sunday. What they're rooting for is for Ovechkin to score 2 goals. Because if he scores 2 goals tonight against the Blackhawks, who are a terrible team, then the chances are that he's going to break the record Sunday. But above that, everybody's going to watch the entire game, or at least until he scores. As the president of a team, let's say I'm the president of the Capitals, I want him to score 1 goal Friday, 1 goal Sunday, and be 1 away for Thursday's game, which is the first home game out of these 3 games when they play the Carolina Hurricanes. And that game is back on ESPN, the Disney networks. So it's funny how everyone has a rooting interest, obviously selfishly, because that would make sense. And the rooting interest is we just can't have him be past the record before our game. I can argue that if he's still 3 away for each game, people will tune in thinking, oh, he could get a hat trick. If he's 2 away, you'll get more. If he's 1 away, you'll get even more. And if he's tied, oy vey, if Alex Ovechkin is tied, then you will get record ratings and viewers for the next particular game. Because I do believe that fans will realize that they're going to want to see history. Because I would tell all of you out there, to the 46% of you who are under 34, you're never going to see this again. There is no hockey player, and I said that after Gretzky, I grant you. But this time, I really mean it. There is no player in hockey who is 5 years old or is actually in the league right now who is going to find his way to 895 goals. Alex Ovechkin's going to do it. The NHL is trying to capitalize on this, as they should. Anytime you have an opportunity, you want to draw as much attention as possible. The NHL announced something the other day that gave me some memories of living in Montreal. When you let me help you, Coca. The NHL I have a Friday funny. I was going to violate one of the things that Coca doesn't like when I do. When I start a topic or a segment and then I do a side story without telling people what I'm going to talk about. So, sorry, Coca. The NHL signed a new media rights deal in Canada. There. it brought me back to my time in Montreal. Couple things that you may not have known about Canadian baseball teams, as an example. There used to be something called the currency equalization program. And that is when the Expos and Blue Jays got paid by baseball because there was a problem with the weakness of the Canadian dollar. And so all of our expenses were in Canadian dollars, non-player expenses. We paid our employees in Canadian dollars, our concessionaires in Canadian dollars. All of our revenue was in Canadian dollars, tickets, food, bev, parking. But players are US dollars. So there's a real disadvantage to be in Canada when you had to compete with US teams who were getting US dollar revenue locally, and we were getting Canadian revenue locally. And so we were made somewhat whole. That rule disappeared when teams in Major League Baseball were tired of handing money over to the Blue Jays and to the Expos. And now there is a similar situation happening where there is a huge problem with Canadian teams in hockey. The Blue Jays are still at a disadvantage. There is an exchange rate issue. When you've got a package to sell, you've got your media rights, you've got any sort of national sponsorships or international sponsorships. The North American sports, NFL, NBA, MLB, they don't focus on the Canada rights. It's a part of what they do, but it's a tiny little part, not meaningful. The NHL is totally different. When they are doing a TV deal in Canada, it is a huge, huge deal. It's bigger and always has been than the US TV deal. Canada, its sport, it's hockey. When the NHL signed this new deal, they signed a 12-year, $7.7 billion deal with Rogers. People may know Rogers Communications. You may know Rogers owns the Blue Jays. But what Rogers really does, other than figuring out if they're going to sign Guerrero, is they are a cable company for all intents and purposes. So when they sign a deal like this, you may be thinking, that seems like a heavy price to pay. But Rogers looks at it the same way Disney or Warner Brothers Discovery or NBC or CBS looks at getting the NFL or looks at getting the NBA. It is a huge block of programming. It is a huge number of hours because there are so many Canadian teams, and those Canadian teams, including Winnipeg, who you wouldn't think would have a team number one, and you wouldn't think they'd be good because you don't remember them ever being good. And then you look at the standings, and they're the best team in hockey. But people were wondering to Gary Bettman, I'm not sure I understand. Why did you do a deal like this? Why didn't you try to do an international deal with a US streamer like a Netflix or an Amazon or an Apple? Why didn't you try to do a deal with Disney? And Gary Bettman addressed this straight on, and I give him a lot of credit. He said that all of you who are impugning my ability to negotiate media rights deals, you're all Americans. You're not focused on the fact that US media rights and the marketplace in the United States is totally different than Canada. And he's 100% right. Back in the day, we would have a pretty big sized Hispanic marketing department in Miami. And even when we were playing at Pro Player Stadium. And I never liked calling it the Hispanic marketing department or the Latin marketing department because there are no scenarios where you market to Cubans, Venezuelans, Mexicans, and Dominicans the same way. They're all different people. They all respond to different marketing. You have to actually have marketing plans that are specific to each demographic. It's like saying that you can market the same way to a city versus a country, atmosphere, and group of people. It doesn't resonate the same. And for National Hockey League and Gary Bettman to recognize that dealing with Canada is different than the US, that ought to be like page 2 of your job description. But the reason that he felt that it was noteworthy and needed to tell you that he was actually doing his job well is that he had to come out ahead of the story to try to deflect some of the criticism that came with doing this deal with Rogers. I must say that when you're thinking about a broadcast deal in Canada, you go to the biggest player in Canada, and that's Rogers. And if Rogers is willing to pay that amount of money for exclusivity and to take all of the Canada from Montreal all the way to Vancouver, you're going to do more than consider it. You're going to do it. The problem with the NHL being so reliant on Canada is that they've got a small problem there. It's not that Trump wants them to be the 51st state. That's not actually it. The problem really is what's going to happen if the Canadian economy goes into the tank following the US economy, which is being pushed into a recession by tariffs and various other economic policies that are existing in the US right now. And if Canada goes into a recession, then that is going to have quite a deleterious impact on the business of the NHL in a much greater percentage than on the business of the other sports teams. And so, therefore, it was incumbent upon him to figure out a way to try to mitigate the impact that a recession or the impact that Canada could feel by actions in the US. Therefore, the pressure to do this deal was greater. The pressure to get it done faster existed. And frankly, Rogers felt this made sense. And that's how deals happen. When both sides have a sense of urgency, when both sides feel like it's the right move for them, it becomes easier to get something accomplished. And so it did. The NHL made sure that as part of this deal, that they've got some carve-outs. They have some abilities to figure out what they can do to monetize other things. And that becomes very important. So, for example, they can make more money when Rogers does a deal in Quebec because there's going to be a French deal, whether it's with Réseau des Sports or anybody else, any other French network. The NHL had to be clear that we want to share in what you're doing when you sub-license out our games to French-speaking people in Canada. It's the same concept when ESPN got all the CFP games. You may remember this. And then they licensed out a bunch of them to Warner Brothers Discovery. These sort of sub-license deals and revenue sharing are extremely common. And they're very smart to do if you are Gary Bettman in the NHL. So I want to compliment him for this deal with Rogers. It's an exciting time with Ovechkin. And all of this hockey before the break is making Sarah tear up with tears of joy. Well, after the break, we're going to go back to Miami. We're not talking Marlins. We're not talking Dolphins. We're not even talking Heat. We're going to be talking about the Heat's opponent from last night, the Memphis Grizzlies, and their star player, Ja Morant. We'll do that after the break. Whether you call it soccer, football, or something else, you can take a shot to win cash with Heineken and DraftKings while watching the world's most popular sport. Make predictions on some of the biggest matches of the year and compete for $5,000 a contest in 15 free pools. Heineken is a lager for any league, and you'll enjoy action from the first to the last. Must be 21 plus to enter. Eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See DraftKings.com/Heineken for details. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. It's David Sampson on a Friday. We made it. Thank God it's Friday. I don't know what your plans are for the weekend. I assume you're going to watch the Final Four. You should. There is baseball, obviously. The NBA is getting to the end of its schedule. Seedings are up in the air, though not a lot of great races for who's going to make the playoffs. We are maybe a week away from the Phoenix Suns not making the playoffs. Not that I'm going to dance on the grave of the Phoenix Suns season, but my God, it couldn't have happened to more of a new owner-itis team than the Phoenix Suns. Let's get to the movie that I watched. I can't remember if Coca, you had me watch this movie. It's called Companion with Sophie Thatcher and Jack Quaid. You may know Sophie Thatcher from Heretic. You may know Jack Quaid from Novocaine, a new movie that came out. You may know Jack Quaid from his parents, Dennis Quaid and Meg Ryan. Here's the concept of Companion and why I liked it. What if you were able to invent a absolute human-looking robot? Ex Machina. What if you were able to invent a really human-looking doll? Lars and the Real Girl. Her. So many different movies have come out about this concept. Companion is one of the best. I really did like Ex Machina, though. But here's why I'd like you to watch this movie. You don't exactly know what's happening, and you think it's sort of strange that certain people could be with certain people, and then you say to yourself, oh, everybody deserves love. And then you say to yourself, wait a minute, that may not be a real person. And then you say to yourself, who would I invent? Who would be my companion if I could have a companion? Now, of course, we could all pay for companions, but what would you do if you paid for a non-human companion? And I don't mean a service dog. How would you build it? What would be your personality? What if you could control it with a remote like Click? Except you're not stopping your life or fast forwarding your life. You're making your life. Hard to argue against it unless they go rogue. Could they go rogue? It's almost impossible. This movie has it all. It's called Companion. I strongly encourage you to watch it. And while you're watching it, I'd like you to build your own companion. Companions. Everyone wants companionship, don't they? Everyone just wants to be loved. Everyone wants attention, snuggles. I can't figure out for the life of me, Ja Morant. I was texting, look at me, David. It's not even a look at me, David. I was texting with Dominique Foxworth last night. He was at the Heat Grizzly game. He's been filling in for Dan Lebitard while Dan has been away recording shows Monday through Friday. Dan will be away again Monday, and I'll actually be in Miami sitting in the chair. And I was texting Dominique about Ja Morant because we covered Ja Morant and we covered what the NBA did only yesterday when the NBA gave a stern pat on the tushy to Ja. Just a little tiny nugget of warning. Don't do your gun salute. I don't know if we have a picture of it, Coca. I didn't ask for it till now, so I'm sure we don't. But it's this expression. It's this thing that Ja Morant and others do that makes it look like he's holding some sort of gun. And there's a bunch of players who have done it, and they always get in trouble. But what the NBA decided to do with Ja Morant is issue him a warning. And the warning was this: don't do it again. Seems like a very clear warning. It seems simple. Now, I like the kind of warnings that have consequence. I like the kind of warning, hey, if you do this again, then blank. It's the old if then. Very important. I don't really get the whole empty warning thing. You better eat your Brussels sprouts. Why? I don't like Brussels sprouts. When they're steamed, they're disgusting. You better eat your fish. I like the silverware. I don't like the fish. Or what? Are you going to take away my record player? Are you going to take away my phone? Are you going to give me an early curfew? Are you going to take away my allowance? Give me a punishment that I know I either want or don't want. Why didn't the NBA say to Ja Morant, here's your warning, don't do it again. If you do, you're going to lose money. Look at what Coca just came up with. On April 1st, there's Ja Morant doing the salute. Then he's told, don't do it. I'm warning you. Last night in Miami at the Kaseya Center, look what Ja Morant did. Now, he did hit the game-winning shot, but he didn't do that salute when he hit the game-winning shot. This was during the course of the game. What does Adam Silver do when he looks at this game tape? When he knows that he issued warnings but no further penalties? Do you think that there is a good chance that Adam Silver will have to punish Ja Morant? What happens as a parent when you don't punish your child, when there are no consequences for bad behavior, no consequences for poor actions, bad decisions? How exactly do they learn? Can Ja Morant be taught? Have we lost Ja Morant totally? Dominique Foxworth and I were stunned into finger silence while trying to have a text conversation, because can it be that he is that stupid? No, we don't think that. Could it be that all he cares about is testing authority, testing authority, testing authority? You want to suspend me? Suspend me. You've done it. Did he do a full Jim Carrey? Saying, is that all you got from the Truman Show? What do you do when somebody who you're trying to discipline actually doesn't care about the discipline? What do you do when a player is so rich that you can suspend him without pay for a game, 5 games, 10 games, 20 games, and it doesn't even impact one thing in their life? What's the hammer? Here's the problem. There is no hammer. The only way you can have any sort of leverage and power over someone is when you have something they want, or you have the ability to take away something that they have that they like having. Ja Morant has made it super clear that whatever Adam Silver decides, he can fine him, he can suspend him, he can publicly embarrass him, he can do anything. And Ja Morant simply doesn't care. Ja Morant is far more interested in figuring out who's going to coach his team, trying to figure out how it is that they can get a ring, how it is that they can win a title. Maybe that's his priority. Maybe his priority is looking good to his friends and relatives. Maybe his priority is playing to the fans when he's on the road and trying to get those boos into cheers or boos into silence. But it's the job of the NBA and Adam Silver to make sure that every player, no matter who, has something they're willing to lose and something that they'll be unhappy to lose. If you only have players with things that they're willing to lose, you can't run your league. So Adam Silver's going to have no choice but to suspend Ja Morant for what he did. He can't just fine him. He's got to suspend him. There's only about 5 games left in the regular season. Adam Silver's going to have to move quickly because he doesn't want to be embarrassed. God knows if David Stern were the commissioner, Ja Morant would have been suspended last night. They wouldn't have waited for due process. They wouldn't have waited to get his point of view. They would have looked at the video, done, goodbye. We have no tolerance for that. Adam Silver tries to be a little bit more player friendly, a little bit more calculated in what he does, a little less emotional, a little less scary, a little less mean than David Stern was, rest in peace. But even Adam Silver, whether he's the players commissioner or not, is going to suspend Ja Morant. So I would say this. You may be arguing to me right now under your breath that Adam Silver's already suspended Ja Morant. Remember those 25 games when he had a gun and a real gun? Remember he lost $7.6 million? Remember that he went to rehab and he was fixed in like 3 days, I'm cured, and then he got suspended again? Remember how he lost out on a full max contract because he wasn't named All NBA? Guess what? None of it mattered. How paralyzing to Adam Silver. So you have to ignore that fact and you have to keep trying. But you try in a way that will be embarrassing, that will be swift, that will be decisive, and that will cost money, even if they don't care about money or never get publicly embarrassed and don't care about the swiftness or the decisiveness. My wait to see, my second of the day here, Coca. Wait to see. Make it official on davidsamsonpodcast.com. Ja Morant will get suspended. He will serve a 1-game suspension before the end of the regular season. And I'm willing to get it wrong, and I'll revisit it like I've gotten many of them wrong. But if I'm the commissioner of basketball, I am not waiting much past 10 a.m. Eastern this morning. So, in fact, while you're watching this on DraftKings Network, Ja Morant already could have been suspended, in which case, you're welcome. And if you're listening to this tonight, Friday night, April 4th, and he still hasn't been suspended, God dang it, I'll lose my weight to see. But I'm not saying he'll be suspended today. I get till the end of the regular season, Coca. Ja Morant will get suspended by the end of the regular season. Nothing personal pick of the day. Oh, yeah. I like winning the picks of the day. I don't want you to fade me because I'm feeling a little hot right now. I told you nasty Nestor Cortez would rebound from his shellacking that the Yankees gave him with the torpedo bats. Home run, home run, home run, pitch, pitch, pitch. Nasty Nestor dealed 6 shutty last night. Now, it is true the Cincinnati Reds haven't scored in about a year and a half. It is true that the Cincinnati Reds did something yesterday that I would have bet any amount of money would have been impossible. They lost 1-0 to the Brewers, and it was their third straight 1-0 loss. They lost 2 to the Rangers, 1-0, and then they lost 1-0 again last night. So, not only did we win our pick of the day, but we saw something that we haven't seen in 63 years. Nobody's lost 1-0 3 games in a row since 1960. Of course, that is not 63 years. 4-8-69. Last night, the Cincinnati Reds lost 1-0. That was their third straight loss of 1-0, which we had not seen since 1960, which is 65 years ago. I actually thought it was 2023. Way to go, Dave. We are now 31-38. That was a good win for us. We've got 4 picks to talk about. Number 1, tonight, big game. You may remember approximately 42 minutes ago, we started with a word of the day that was embarrassing. You may remember we did a segment about the Braves and how they're 0-7. You can't win 7 in a row without winning 1 in a row. 1 in a row starts tonight. The Atlanta Braves are at home, opening day, playing the Miami Marlins. You know I love my Marlins, but the Braves need a win in the worst possible way. The line is -245. They are favored. They've got their best non-injured pitcher pitching. The Marlins have actually been exciting. They've been hitting. They've been scoring. They've been clutch. They've been loose and free. But I think the Braves tonight, home, truest, they may go to some of the outside development outside the park, get a little pregame cocktail, maybe do a shot, maybe do an extra green ice cream. Not only are they going to win the game, that's our first pick. They're going to win by more than 1.5. We're doing 2 picks tonight, both Braves. Braves -245 over the Marlins and Braves -1.5, which according to DraftKings is only -108. That's the run line. But that's not it. We got 2 more picks for you. Yes, we do. Tomorrow night, Saturday. What a game. Aaron Nola and the Phillies takes on Sasaki and the Dodgers. Remember, I talked to you about that game earlier in the week when we talked about Sasaki and as a rookie, how he's doing. The Phillies are going to beat the Dodgers because Aaron Nola is one of the best pitchers in baseball. And yes, he gave up runs in his first start. And yes, the Dodgers have a good lineup. Yes, Freddie Freeman is on the injured list with a sprained ankle. And yes, it happened in the shower. Oy vey. But we're taking the Phillies over the Dodgers. And we're also going to be watching the Final Four. Tonight, you could watch the women's Final Four. But Saturday night, we're going to watch the men's Final Four. Duke is favored by 5.5 over Houston in the second game. That's the late game. If this isn't the season for Cooper Flagg, the one and done, get to the finals, likely win the whole thing as Cooper Flagg enters the NBA, which he says he may not do, which he will do, and he's the number 1 pick, which he will be, and he's Tatum or he's Pippen, whoever you want to compare him to. Here's what he's going to be first, a national champion. Spoiler alert, you may know my pick for Monday night. Duke -5.5 over Houston is my 4th, nothing personal pick of the day. $22.5 million. Seems like a lot of money. Do you know that that is the cost for fixing the roof at Tropicana Field. Yesterday, St. Petersburg, the city of St. Petersburg, voted to pay for repairs to Tropicana Field, starting with the roof. And they did it in a way that I want to talk to you about. It's called a guaranteed maximum price, GMP. I'm very familiar with GMPs, having been involved in the building of a ballpark. A GMP is when you go to your contractor and you say, listen, my budget to redo the bathroom is $5,000. I'll give you $5,000. That's it. You've got to promise me that you'll only spend $5,000 to fix the bathroom. But if you spend more, it's on your dime. In order to get to a guaranteed maximum price for your bathroom, you have to pick out the tile, pick out the fixtures and furnishings, pick out the toilet, pick out the wallpaper, pick out the shower curtain. You pick out everything that's part of that guaranteed maximum price. And after that, you're off the hook as the customer. In this case, the customer is the St. Petersburg City Council. And they did a deal with the contractor that said they will pay $22.5 million hard stop. In return, they're going to get a roof. If there are overruns for that roof, they're not responsible for it. The contractor is. So what does the contractor do? They try to sign a contract with you that gives them maximum flexibility. We like the wallpaper you chose, but if that wallpaper isn't available or its price goes up by more than 10%, then we get the choice to choose the next wallpaper that will let us stay within our GMP. If all of a sudden there's tariffs and steel costs more, or wallpaper costs more, or the minimum wage goes up, anything that could happen, we are in charge as the contractor because we gave you a guaranteed maximum price, so you don't have to worry about any of those overruns or any of those problems or changes in pricing. But you sure as heck fire better pay attention when you're doing the contract. Because what contractors do with the GMP is they give themselves enough room, enough flexibility to make sure that there will never be overruns. They're the anti-owner. Where owners are in charge of overruns for a stadium, they don't pay attention. They're subject to whims of different pricing of steel, aluminum, prefabricated concrete, all the various things that go into a stadium. And then they make decisions like, I don't like that chair. I want this here, that there. And then before you know it, you've got $20 million in overruns that you've got to pay for. Like in Oakland, like the Tampa Rays said, their stadium in St. Petersburg. It's a year delayed. We already know the cost is going higher. Therefore, we need more public money or we're not going to sign the contract. There was no more public money. They didn't sign the contract. And now you've got the issue with the Tampa Bay Rays. So the fact that the St. Petersburg Council passed a resolution and allowed for the Tropicana roof to be fixed, which, by the way, was their obligation. The fact that they did it actually means nothing. It doesn't mean that the entire building is going to be done for the start of the 26th season. While the Rays came out and said, this is great, we're on our way to starting for 26. St. Petersburg leaders came out, said, oh, this is great. We're going to be ready on budget for the 26th season. They're totally ignoring the fact that getting the roof put back on is only the beginning. There's another $30+ million in repairs that have to be done inside the bowl. Remember, it's an indoor facility that has been open to the elements since Hurricane Milton. Just putting a tarp back on the roof is not going to all of a sudden make the ballpark ready to go. So the amount of money and the amount of work that still is left to go for St. Petersburg to get this stadium open in 26 is significant, which is why Major League Baseball is figuring out with Stu Sternberg where in heck's name they're going to play next season because they can't play at Steinbrenner Field. And they've got to have an alternative in case Tropicana Field is not done. While the PR says, hey, this is great. It looks like the roof is being fixed. The money's been approved. Everything is coming up roses. In reality, it hasn't changed one thing that's going on with the Rays and baseball and with St. Petersburg in terms of their long term. This was something St. Petersburg had to pass yesterday in order to avoid litigation by the Rays and likely by baseball that they would have lost, because the lease is super clear. When there are repairs that need to be made, you've got to make the repairs so that the team can play there. That's a provision that is required in leases. It's required by MLB because teams need a place to play. So where does this end? This ends with a heck of a lot of money being spent by St. Petersburg. It ends with a ton of anxiety. And at some point, baseball, the Rays, and St. Petersburg will look at each other and say, "How you doing? It's just business." Have a great weekend. This is nothing personal.